Jake Miller wasn't the kind of man who believed in magic or fate. He lived a quiet life in a small town, working as a mechanic and spending his weekends fixing old bikes or watching the stars from his rooftop. Life was simple, and that's how he liked it. One sunny afternoon, while walking through the weekend market, Jake noticed something strange. A small stall stood at the corner of the street, one he hadn't seen before. It was covered with an old cloth, and behind it sat an elderly man with long white hair and sharp gray eyes. Curious, Jake walked over. The stall was filled with strange objects, old-looking keys, smooth stones with carvings, and metal pieces shaped like animals. But one thing caught his eye: a simple silver ring lying on a red cloth. It didn't shine or sparkle like the others, but something about it felt warm. "How much for the ring?" Jake asked. The old man looked up, almost like he was expecting the question. "For you, young man? $5. Jake chuckled. "5? That's cheap. What's the catch?" "No catch," the old man said. "But once you wear it, your path may change." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You selling rings or stories?" The old man only smiled. Jake bought the ring. It felt cool in his hand, but the moment he slid it onto his finger, it warmed up slightly, just enough to notice. Weird, he thought. Maybe it's just body heat. Later that evening, Jake sat on his rooftop with a cup of tea. The stars were clear, the sky peaceful. He looked at the ring again. Still warm. Still strange. He turned on his telescope, hoping to distract himself with the planets. But as he gazed into the sky, something odd happened. A light, bright and fast, shot across the sky. It wasn't a normal shooting star. It moved too precisely, like it had a purpose. That's when the dream started. That night, Jake found himself standing in a strange place, a metallic room, walls glowing softly with blue light. Before him stood a tall woman with glowing markings on her skin and silver eyes. She looked at him with a gentle smile. "You've accepted the bond," she said, in a voice that echoed inside his mind. "Who are you?" Jake asked, unsure if this was a dream or something more. "You wear the ring," she answered. "It has chosen you." He tried to speak again, but the dream began to fade. He woke up with a start, sweating and confused. The ring on his finger was still warm, maybe even warmer than before. Shaking off the strange feeling, Jake went to work the next day, but his mind wasn't on the engines or tools. He kept thinking about the dream, about the woman, about her voice. Was it just his imagination? That night, it happened again. This time, the dream was longer. The woman told him her name, Seraphine. She came from a distant world. She said the ring was not just a piece of metal. It was a symbol of unity, a sacred item from her people. It was meant to choose a partner, a bondmate across space and time. Jake laughed in the dream. "So you're saying I accidentally married an alien?" Seraphine only smiled. "The bond is not forced. It listens to the soul," yours answered. Again, he woke up before he could ask more. He decided to go back to the market, to the stall. But when he returned to the spot where he bought the ring, it was gone. No stall. No old man. Nothing. It was like it had never been there. Jake stood there, for a while, staring at the empty space. He looked at the ring again. Still on his finger. Still warm. Still strange. That night, things took a turn. A loud hum filled the sky. Jake rushed outside. Above the trees, a bright object hovered silently. A smooth silver ship, shaped like a teardrop. No engines. No fire. Just light and silence. Then it descended slowly and landed near the forest behind his house. Jake's heart pounded. This couldn't be real. As he stepped closer to the glowing ship, a panel opened. A ramp lowered, and from the mist inside stepped a tall, elegant woman, the same one from his dreams. Seraphine. She wore a robe of deep violet with shining symbols. Her eyes met his, and she smiled gently. "I have come for you," she said. "Bonded one." Jake's world changed in that moment. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was part of something far bigger, something he didn't understand but couldn't walk away from either. And it all started with a $5 ring. Jake stood frozen near the trees, unable to look away from the glowing ship in front of him. The cool night air pressed against his skin, but all he felt was the strange warmth of the ring on his finger, growing stronger with each second. Seraphine slowly stepped down the ramp. Her steps were light, graceful, as if the ground barely touched her feet. Her silver eyes locked onto Jake's face, and in them was something calm, familiar, almost kind. "You came," Jake said, his voice barely louder than a whisper. "I was called," she replied gently. "The bond was activated. I could feel it the moment you placed the ring on your hand." Jake blinked. "So you're real? Not a dream?" "I was reaching out through the dream space," Seraphine said. "It was the only way until I could travel here." She stood just a few feet away now. She was tall, at least a head taller than Jake, with soft blue skin and faint glowing lines that pulsed slowly along her arms and cheeks. Her robe shifted, in the night breeze like it was made of starlight. Jake didn't know what to say. "Why me? Why Earth?" "The ring," Seraphine said, raising her hand and pointing to it. "It is a ceremonial artifact of my people, the Union Band. It was lost long ago during a conflict between star nations. Somehow it ended up here on your planet." "I bought it for $5, Jake muttered. Seraphine smiled. "The universe has its own way of finding balance." Jake laughed nervously. "You're telling me I bought an alien wedding ring? And now we're married?" Seraphine tilted her head slightly. "Not in your Earth laws, but in mine, yes. The ring doesn't bind by law, it binds by connection. When you wore it, the signal reached across space and it responded to your spirit." Jake shook his head. "This is a lot. I'm just a mechanic. I fix trucks, not fly spaceships." "You were chosen not for what you do," Seraphine said, softly, "but for who you are." Jake looked down at the ring. It no longer looked simple. The dull silver now held a faint glow, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "I still don't understand," Jake said, frowning. "What happens now? You've come all this way. What do you expect me to do?" "I came to meet you," Seraphine said. "To learn from you. The bond allows for that. It is not a chain, it is a bridge." "A bridge?" Jake repeated. "Yes, between hearts, between worlds." Suddenly, a low sound rumbled from the ship. Seraphine turned her head slightly as if hearing a distant voice. "We should not remain here," she said. "Others may detect the ship. Come with me." Jake hesitated. The ship glowed softly, inviting him, but this was everything outside, his normal life. Just yesterday he was repairing engines and drinking tea. Now an alien woman stood before him speaking of bonds and distant planets, but something in him said to go. He nodded slowly. "Okay, let's go." They walked up the ramp together. The inside of the ship was unlike anything Jake had seen. The walls seemed alive, gently glowing and shifting like soft water. The floor felt solid but had no visible seams or bolts. It was quiet, peaceful. "Is it alive?" Jake asked. "In a way," Seraphine replied. "The ship is linked to my thoughts. It obeys silently." She led him to a round room with wide windows that showed the forest outside. A soft blue chair rose from the floor, and Jake sat down carefully. It molded to his shape instantly. Seraphine sat across from him. "Your world is beautiful," she said, "but your people don't know what they hold." Jake leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "That ring," she explained, "is part of an ancient agreement. A bond like this can allow two worlds to learn from each other, to share peace and knowledge. But it only works when both are willing." Jake looked out the window. "I don't know if I'm ready to represent Earth." "You don't have to," Seraphine said. "Just be your sea." There was silence for a while. A peaceful one. Then Seraphine stood and walked to a panel. It lit up at her touch. A hologram appeared. images of her world. Towering crystal structures, twin suns, and skies full of floating lights. "That's your home?" Jake asked, eyes wide. "Yes," she replied. "It is called Kalyar, and now that the bond is active, you are invited there." Jake took a deep breath. "You want me to go with you, to your planet?" "You don't have to decide now," she said, "but I hope you will." Jake didn't answer. Not yet. His world had already changed in one night, and now it might change forever. But deep down, part of him was excited, curious, drawn to this strange journey that had started with a simple ring. Jake didn't sleep that night. Even though Seraphine's ship had a quiet room for him, soft music playing from the walls and lights dimmed to a calm glow, his mind was too full. He lay on the strange, soft bed, staring at the curved ceiling, still trying to understand what was happening. He had bought a simple ring. He had dreams. Then an alien woman arrived and told him they were bonded for life. It sounded like a story, from a book. When he finally sat up, Seraphine was already waiting outside his room. She stood tall and graceful, holding a small tray with a warm drink that smelled like honey and mint. "You didn't rest," she said, offering the drink. Jake smiled politely and took it. "It's a lot to take in." "I understand," Seraphine said. "I went through the same thing once, when I first learned what the bond truly meant." They sat together in a quiet corner of the ship. Outside the window, Earth still lay peaceful, the forest below covered in soft fog. Jake looked at the ring again. "So, this thing really makes us married?" "In my world," Seraphine said, "the union band is not just a symbol. It is a soul link. It chooses two beings who share something deep, kindness, purpose, courage, sometimes pain. When one wears it willingly, it answers." Jake sighed. "I didn't mean to wear it like that. I just thought it looked interesting." "The bond, still formed," she replied gently. "You may not have known, but your spirit accepted." Jake looked at her with a tired smile. "You don't seem angry. You traveled across the stars for someone who didn't even know you." Seraphine smiled back. "No, I'm not angry. The bond led me to someone honest and kind. You didn't turn me away. That means more than you know." Jake ran a hand through his hair. "So, what happens now? Are we supposed to live together on your planet?" "That's one path," Seraphine said, "but the bond doesn't force anything. It's not a trap, it only connects. We can grow from it or let it fade. That choice is ours." He paused. "Have you ever had a bond like this before?" She looked away for a moment. "No. This is my first." Jake stood up and paced slowly. "I'm not sure I'm ready to leave Earth. My life is simple. I fix cars, I feed stray cats, I water my plants. I've never even been on a plane, and now you're asking me to go to another planet." Seraphine nodded. "You're not alone in this. If you wish, I can stay here for a time. Learn your world. Learn you." Jake looked surprised. "You'd really stay on Earth?" "Of course. The bond goes both ways. I want to understand your life just as I want you to understand mine." He smiled. "That's fair." Suddenly, a soft chime echoed through the ship. Seraphine touched her wrist and a glowing panel appeared in the air. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "My people have detected the bond activation. A message is coming from the Kalyari Council." Jake frowned. "That sounds serious." "It is," she said. "They'll want to speak to you soon." Before he could ask more, a glowing blue sphere appeared in the air. Inside it, 3 figures appeared, 2 elders with golden robes and 1 younger man with bright green eyes. "Seraphine," the elder woman said calmly, "you have returned. And we see the bond is active." "Yes, counselor," Seraphine answered. "This is Jake Miller of Earth. The ring chose him." The male elder leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Earth is not part of our alliance. No human has ever been bound." "It was not planned," Seraphine said, "but it is real." The younger man spoke. His voice was colder. "Then the bond must be broken. before it creates further problems. Jake stepped forward, trying to stay calm. Excuse me, but I didn't ask for any of this. But I didn't run either. I'm trying to understand. The older woman looked at him closely. Your words show care, human. But the bond has rules. Our traditions must be honored. Jake looked at Seraphine. Is that true? Can they break it? Yes, she said quietly, but only if both sides agree. Jake took a deep breath. I don't want to break it, not yet. I don't even know what it means, but I want to find out. The council members exchanged glances. Finally, the elder woman said, Very well. The human will be allowed to visit Calyar. There he must face the trials of the bond. If he proves his heart is worthy, the union may continue. The sphere disappeared. Jake sat down heavily. Trials? What kind of trials? Seraphine gave a gentle smile. Not all tests are battles. Some are about patience, trust, and truth. Jake sighed. Sounds like marriage already. They both laughed softly. The stars outside blinked quietly as the ship began to rise. And Jake, the man who bought a $5 ring, prepared to meet a world beyond imagination. All because of a bond he never meant to form, but now didn't want to lose. The stars stretched like silver threads across the black sky as Seraphine's ship quietly rose above Earth's surface. Jake sat near the window, staring at his home slowly growing smaller below. It felt strange, leaving behind everything he knew, his tools, his home, his routines, for something completely unknown. Seraphine sat across from him, watching him closely. You still have time to change your mind, she said softly. No, one will blame you. Jake shook his head. No, I made a choice. I said I wanted to understand this bond, and I meant it. Seraphine smiled faintly. You're brave, Jake Miller. Most would have walked away. Jake chuckled nervously. Maybe. I'm just too curious. The ship moved smoothly with no sound or shaking. Stars drifted by like floating dust. Seraphine showed him different parts of the ship, a room with living plants from her world, a gallery of glowing crystals that changed color when he touched them, and a quiet chamber where sound didn't exist. Every corner of the ship felt peaceful, like it was built not just for travel, but for healing. How long until we reach your planet? Jake asked. Only a few hours, Seraphine replied. This ship uses a starfold engine. It moves between spacefolds, skipping long distances. Jake tried to understand but gave up quickly. I'm just going to nod and act smart. She laughed gently. You'll learn. Not everything is meant to be understood at once. They spent the journey talking about Earth, about Calyar, about the things they liked and feared. Jake told her about his childhood, how he fixed his first engine at age 12, how he never knew his real parents but was raised by a kind older couple who treated him like their own. Seraphine shared that her people were not born in families, the same way. They were raised in community homes taught by elders and tested for their talents as they grew. She had shown high connection energy, what humans might call empathy, and was trained as a soul binder. That's why the ring responded to me, she explained. I was connected to it even before it reached your world. Jake was silent for a moment. Do you think it chose right? Seraphine looked into his eyes. I do. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed through the ship. Arrival at Calyar orbit. Preparing to land. Jake stood and followed Seraphine to the viewing deck. What he saw made his breath catch. Below them was a world glowing with soft light, blue oceans, tall mountains that shimmered with crystal edges, and forests of strange purple trees. In the skies above the planet, large floating islands hovered quietly, with silver buildings that sparkled in the sun. Calyar, Seraphine whispered. Home. The ship slowly descended into a wide landing bay made of smooth white stone. As it touched down, a group of Calyari figures stood waiting outside. They wore long robes, each decorated with glowing patterns. At the front stood a tall elder with golden eyes. Seraphine turned to Jake. That's High Counselor Mira. She leads the bond trials. Jake took a deep breath. Let's get this started. As they stepped outside, Jake felt the warm air of Kalyar wrap around him. It smelled sweet, like blooming flowers and soft winds. The ground beneath his feet was smooth and cool. The counselor stepped forward. "Jake Miller of Earth," she said in a calm voice, "you carry a bond our world has not seen in 1,000 years. You will face 3 trials, not of strength but of spirit. Only through them can your bond be accepted." Jake nodded. "I understand." Mira smiled slightly. "Good. Your first, trial begins at sunrise tomorrow. Tonight you will rest in the guest sanctuary." Jake and Seraphine were guided to a calm building shaped like a shell. Inside, glowing stones lit the hallways and a soft music played from hidden walls. Jake sat on the soft bed in his room, staring again at the ring. "It's all real," he whispered. "This place, this bond, her." There was a knock at the door. Seraphine stepped in, her eyes gentle. "I came to say goodnight," she said. Jake smiled. "Thanks for staying with me through all this. I don't know if I could have handled it alone." "You're not alone," she said. "Not anymore." Jake looked down. "Do you think I'll pass the trials?" Seraphine didn't answer right away. Then she walked closer and sat beside him. "I think the trials will see what I've already seen," she said softly. "A heart willing to understand. A soul not afraid of the unknown. That is rare, even among my people." Jake looked at her. "You really believe in this bond, don't you?" She nodded. "I do, and I believe in you." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll face whatever comes. For the bond. And for you." Outside the window, twin moons rose above the glowing forests of Kalyar. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight there was peace. And the bond between 2 souls, one human, one alien, grew quietly, like the stars above. The next morning, soft light entered through the round windows of the guest sanctuary. The sky above Kalyar was painted in calm shades of orange and purple, and the trees swayed gently in the morning breeze. Jake stood near the window, dressed in a simple robe given to him by Seraphine. He felt nervous but also ready. Today his first trial would begin. Seraphine appeared at his door, her silver eyes calm but focused. "Are you prepared?" she asked. Jake nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." They walked together to the central hall of the Kalyari temple. The floor was made of glowing crystal panels, and soft chimes played as they stepped forward. At the far end of the hall, Counselor Mira stood waiting, along with a group of Kalyari elders and observers. Mira raised her hand. "Today begins the trials of the bond. The first test is called the Mirror of Truth. Jake Miller, you must enter the chamber alone. Inside, you will see your true self. Not the one others see, but the one hidden inside. If you run from it, the bond will begin to fade." Jake looked at Seraphine, who gave him a small nod of encouragement. He stepped forward. The doors opened with a soft hum, and Jake entered the trial chamber. It was completely round, with smooth walls that reflected light like water. In the center was a raised platform with a single glowing crystal. As Jake stepped onto it, the room changed. Suddenly, images appeared around him. Memories, mistakes, moments of fear and doubt. He saw himself as a child, crying alone in a broken home. He saw the time he had let down a friend, too afraid to speak up. He saw himself walking past someone who needed help, pretending not to notice. All his regrets stood before him like silent statues. Jake's heart beat faster. Then the images shifted. He saw himself fixing a neighbor's car for free, feeding a stray cat in the rain, giving his coat to a lost child. He had done good too. Small things, quiet things. A voice echoed through the room. "Do you accept all parts of yourself?" Jake closed his eyes. "Yes, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, but I've tried to be better, and I still will." The light from the crystal rose high and filled the room. The images faded, The doors opened and Jake stepped out. Mira smiled slightly. You faced yourself with honesty. The first trial is complete. The Cagliari observers gave soft nods and polite claps. Seraphine's eyes shone with quiet pride. Later, in the garden behind the temple, Jake sat with Seraphine under a tree with glowing leaves. A stream ran beside them and tiny lights floated above the water. I thought I'd feel ashamed, Jake admitted, but seeing all those parts of myself it helped, like I understand myself better now. Seraphine smiled. That's the purpose, to know yourself before joining with another. Bonding isn't just about emotion, it's about truth. Jake leaned back. What's the next trial? The trial of compassion, she said. You'll be placed in a situation where someone needs your help. How you respond will be watched closely. Jake raised an eyebrow. Like a test? Not a trick, she said. It will be real. The emotions will be real. You must act from the heart, not because someone is watching, but because you truly care. Jake nodded slowly. I understand. That night he slept lighter. Though his nerves still buzzed, he felt stronger. The first trial had shaken him, but it had also shown him who he really was. The next morning, before sunrise, he was taken to a small village at the edge of a forest. It looked peaceful, but as soon as he arrived, something felt wrong. He saw a crowd near a broken cart. A large creature, a gentle beast called a thalar, was stuck under a fallen tree. Its leg was trapped, and the villagers didn't have the tools or strength to move it. Jake didn't wait for orders. He rushed forward, pushing through the crowd. Get me something to lift the tree, he shouted. Ropes, poles, anything strong. The villagers looked surprised, but quickly followed his lead. Jake used everything he knew from working on machines. He found the best angle, used the cart's wheels for leverage, and finally, after great effort, the tree shifted. The thalar groaned and pulled its leg free. It limped, but was safe. The villagers cheered. Jake fell to the ground, breathing hard. His shirt covered in sweat and dust. A gentle hand helped him up. It was Seraphine. You passed, she whispered. Jake smiled. That wasn't a test, that was real. She nodded. That's why it matters. Back at the temple, Counselor Mira stood again. Jake Miller, you have completed the second trial. You acted with compassion, not for reward, but because it was right. The bond grows stronger. Jake bowed his head, heart full. 2 trials down. 1 more to go. But deep inside, he knew this wasn't just about passing tests. It was about proving, to himself and to her, that what had started as a simple mistake might actually be something real. Jake stood at the edge of the sacred lake, the water still and clear like a glass mirror. Trees with glowing blue leaves surrounded the place, and soft winds moved across the surface. This was the location of the final trial, the trial of unity. He had passed 2 already, the trial of truth and the trial of compassion. Each had been a journey into himself. But this last test was different. This trial would not test his strength or his heart. It would test his decision. Seraphine stood beside him, quiet and calm, though her eyes carried a deep emotion. Counselor Mira stepped forward and raised her hand. Her voice echoed softly through the sacred grove. Jake Miller of Earth, today you face the final trial, the trial of unity. Here, you must make your final decision. The bond you carry is not light. It is ancient, powerful, and eternal. Jake nodded slowly. I understand, Mira continued. If you choose to accept the bond fully, your life will be forever tied to Seraphine's. You may live among our people, walk our path, and share a future built together. But it means leaving your old world behind, truly, fully. Jake glanced at Seraphine. She met his eyes but said nothing. Mira stepped back. You will walk into the waters alone. If your heart is certain, the lake will show you your path. Jake stepped forward, his bare feet touching the smooth stones beneath the shallow water. With each step, the world grew quieter. He moved deeper, until the water reached his waist. Then everything around him shimmered and the water began to glow. Suddenly, he wasn't standing in a lake anymore. He was inside his memories. He saw Earth, his small workshop, the streets of his town, the people he once helped. He saw the life he had built with his own hands, simple and familiar. But then the images shifted. He saw Calyar, the beauty of its skies, the kindness of its people, and Seraphine. She stood alone in a field of stars, her hand reaching toward him, waiting. A voice inside the lake, calm and ancient, spoke gently. Will you return to what you knew or move forward into what could be? The bond cannot remain half-formed. Jake closed his eyes. His heart pulled in both directions. Earth was his home, his past. But Calyar was something new, something unexpected and full of purpose. And Seraphine, she was no longer just a stranger from another world. She was the reason he had changed. He took a deep breath. I choose her. I choose this bond. Light surrounded him. He opened his eyes and found himself back in the lake. But the ring on, his hand now glowed with steady light, and in that moment he felt something shift deep inside. A warmth spread through his chest, a calm strength he had never felt before. He stepped out of the water. Mira, the elders, and Seraphine waited. The bond is complete, Mira said with a smile. He has chosen. The crowd behind her, villagers, temple keepers, and even some of the thalars, let out gentle, joyful sounds. The trees seemed to glow brighter. The lake shimmered with new light. Seraphine stepped forward, her voice trembling. You chose us even when you had the freedom to walk away. Jake smiled. It wasn't just a choice, it felt like the right thing, like it was meant to happen. She gently took his hand. From this moment our souls are linked. You are no longer an outsider. You are one with Calyar, with me. A soft band of light formed between them, flowing from her ring to his. It was not a chain, but a symbol, a connection, warm, gentle, unbreakable. They stood there for a long moment, hand in hand, surrounded by nature and silent celebration. That night, a festival was held in the crystal city of Lethar, where Seraphine had once trained. The people decorated the city with floating lights and petals that danced in the air. Music played, strange but beautiful to Jake's ears. He was welcomed not as a visitor, but as one of their own. Children offered him glowing flowers. Elders bowed in respect. Artists painted the bond symbol across walls to honor the new unity between human and Calyari. Jake sat beside Seraphine as the lights above swirled in the sky. I never thought buying a simple ring would bring me here, he said, shaking his head. Seraphine laughed gently. Sometimes the smallest acts lead to the greatest journeys. Jake looked at her. So what happens now? She looked into his eyes. Now we build a future, together. He leaned back, watching the stars of Calyar above. And for the first time in a long while, he felt completely at home. Weeks passed since Jake had completed the trial of unity. Life on Calyar had started to feel natural, like the planet itself had slowly opened its arms and welcomed him in. Every morning, Jake woke to the gentle song of the trees outside his new home. A home built with a blend of Earth-style warmth and Calyari crystal design. It had large windows that showed the sunrise, and a garden where Seraphine had planted starflowers that glowed softly in the dark. Jake had begun training with the temple crafters. Though he wasn't skilled in Calyari arts, his knowledge of machines and tools amazed them. He helped fix and improve old systems that hadn't worked for years. In return, the Calyari elders taught him about energy fields, spiritual memory stones, and the quiet science of harmony. One evening, Seraphine returned from the temple with news. A message came from Earth, she said, holding a small device. They've been trying to reach you. Your disappearance worried them. Jake took the device and sat down. For the first time in many days, he thought deeply about his old life, his small town, the people he had known, and the shop where all of this had started. "What did the message say?" he asked. "They asked if you're alive. If you need help," she said gently. Jake smiled faintly. "They probably think I was taken." Seraphine sat beside him. "You can send a message back. We can arrange transport. You could return, if you wished." He looked into her eyes. "Do you want me to go?" Her voice was soft. "I want you to be where your heart truly feels at. Peace." Jake didn't answer right away. He stood and walked outside. The twin moons of Calyar were rising again, casting silver light over the valley. He could hear the soft hum of nature, the calm wind, the distant song of flying lights. Then he looked at the ring on his finger. It had started as a simple object, a mistake, a random purchase. But now, it was a symbol of everything he had become. He returned inside and looked at Seraphine. "This is my home now. Earth is where I came from. But Calyar is where I choose to stay." Tears welled in her eyes, though her smile was bright. "The bond is complete," she whispered. "And it will only grow stronger." The next day, the Calyari elders gathered again, this time not for a trial but for a celebration. Not just for the bond between Seraphine and Jake, but for what it symbolized. For the first time in 1,000 years, a human and a Calyari had become bonded through soul and choice, not through war, duty, or command, but through trust and unity. During the celebration, Counselor Mira made an announcement. "We have decided," she said to the crowd, "to open peaceful communication with Earth. Let this bond be the first bridge." Jake and Seraphine stood side by side as stars sparkled above and lights danced across the sky. Over the next few days, Jake helped write the first message to Earth, a message of peace and invitation. He explained his journey, the trials, the bond, and how humanity and Calyari might one day walk beside each other. As the message was sent through the Stargate communicator, Jake felt no fear. He had no reason to hide the truth anymore. He was not lost. He was found. Later that night, Seraphine and Jake stood on a high terrace watching the stars together. "Do you ever wonder," she asked quietly, "why the ring chose you?" Jake looked at her. "Maybe it didn't. Maybe I chose it. Because deep down, I was already searching for something more." She nodded. "We both were." They stayed silent for a long moment, hand in hand. Then Jake chuckled. "Who would have thought a simple ring from a junk shop would lead to this?" Seraphine smiled. "Sometimes the universe hides great power in the smallest things." Jake turned to her. "You know, back on Earth, people say love is the greatest adventure. I didn't understand that before. And now, he said softly, I'm living it." Final note. In a quiet galaxy, where stars burned for millions of years and planets turned slowly, a small bond between two souls, one human, one alien, changed everything. Not because it was loud or powerful, but because it was true, and sometimes truth is all it takes to build a future, together.